Calde o de Solaune protet ma frapo. Hello and welcome to the first part, or actually part 0 of the Reef Nutvi course. This part is just a small introduction to clear up some things that might be unclear about the course. For example, you might have noticed that there are actually two courses that look almost identical, so what's going on there? Also, this course has kind of become a monster. It started out as just some grammar videos, but now we have grammar videos, we have vocab videos, we have listening videos, we have a workbook that goes along. So I wanted to talk about the structure of this course and how to follow them to learn Nutvi successfully. Let's first start with the first question. Why are there two courses that are the same? The answer is they are not the same. We have one Reef Nutvi course and one Forest Nutvi course. You can see here it says Reef Nutvi, so you're currently in the Reef Nutvi course, but we have both Reef Nutvi and Forest Nutvi. These are the two dialects of the Nutvi language we currently have. Maybe in the future we will get more, so maybe if you are watching this video in 2 years there are already 2 more dialects. Maybe then I make new courses with those dialects. But currently we have Reef Nutvi and Forest Nutvi. Reef Nutvi is spoken by the Reef clans, as the name suggests, such as the Metcalina. We have seen these clans only in the second movie, meaning that this dialect actually is kind of new. So it was only introduced in 2022, which at the point when I am recording this video is less than 3 years ago. This has one big disadvantage. Currently, while I am recording this video, there are no actual Reef Nutvi resources. We only have a lot of learning resources for Forest Nutvi, and then we have Reef Nutvi resources that tell you, hey, after you learn Forest Nutvi, this is what you have to change to get Reef Nutvi. That is of course not very nice for people who want to learn Reef Nutvi, and that is the reason I'm doing this course. So there is something where you can go and actually learn Reef Nutvi without having to look at it through the lenses of Forest Nutvi. I don't want to make a very big video about what are all the differences between Reef Nutvi and Forest Nutvi, because you will learn about many of them later on in the grammar videos anyway. So there I will just explain to you how it is in Reef Nutvi. Then you don't need to know how it is in Forest Nutvi if you don't want to learn about Forest Nutvi. But I want to make you aware of some phonological differences between Reef Nutvi and Forest Nutvi. So the different sounds that, for example, Reef Nutvi has but Forest Nutvi doesn't, and the other way around. The reason I want to make you aware of these differences is that when you communicate with others in Nutvi, you can recognize if they are speaking Reef Nutvi or Forest Nutvi. In writing, of course, you can easily see if they use some letters that only exist in one of the two. But also in speaking, it makes sense to know the difference in sound, so you know if your conversation partner speaks another dialect. And also, I hope that showing you the differences helps so that we get less of the, hey, you have a typo there situations in the community. Because it actually happens from time to time that someone writes in Reef Nutvi and then someone is like, hey, you have a typo there. But it's not a typo, it is just another dialect. So, what main differences can we see? First of all, Reef Nutvi has a bunch of sounds that Forest Nutvi does not have. Namely the D, G, B, Sh and Ch. Those you will not find in Forest Nutvi. On the other hand, Reef Nutvi does not have Sir and Tsir, because they turn into the Sh and the Ch. It also does not have the ejectives, so P, T, K at the beginning of syllables. This means that Reef Nutvi actually has less ejectives than you will find in Forest Nutvi. It distinguishes the U and the U sound. Forest Nutvi does not do that, so in Forest Nutvi writing you will never see this weird thingy on top of the U, because Forest Nutvi doesn't really distinguish those two. Unstressed sometimes changes into e. I say sometimes because we don't really have a rule, but a consequence of that is that in Reef Nutvi you will likely see less of the A with the dots on top, so of the sound, than you will see in Forest Nutvi writing, and you will hear less of the sound in speaking then of course too. Reef Nutvi does not have the diphthong, so the apostrophe, between two different vowels. It also has less of them between identical vowels because there it can be left out, but it doesn't have to. So you will overall see less diphthongs and hear less diphthongs in Reef Natvi. Right now you are in the Reef Natvi video course, as I've said in the beginning. You can always recognize it by the green color scheme. But of course there's also Forest Natvi, so let's look at that. Forest Natvi is spoken by the Omaticaya. It is also spoken by some other clans. For example, we can hear it being spoken in Frontiers of Pandora, the video game. It is most common among Natvi learners, which makes sense because it has been around since the first movie and almost all resources are about Forest Natvi, so it is actually far easier currently to learn Forest Natvi. Therefore, as I said, we sometimes have this situation that someone is like, hey, you have a typo there, when all you are trying to do is using the Reef Natvi language. Now the sound differences, of course, are just what I already told you for Reef Natvi, but the other way around. So it doesn't have all of these sounds. On the other hand, it does have sir and tsir. It does have more ejectives, so overall you see more ejectives and hear more ejectives in Forest Natvi, because it can have them at the beginning of a syllable. It doesn't change to the d, g, and b. It does not distinguish u and ö, so you just always write the normal u. It can have the diphthong between two different vowels. So therefore you will see a few more diphthongs in Forest Natvi that you don't see in Reef Natvi. In most cases, it does, however, not allow for two identical vowels next to each other. When you're learning just a few words for the beginning, then that doesn't make a big difference. But that actually changes some of the grammar later on, because some vowels that come together from putting pre or suffix on something have to merge then. I say in most cases because there are exceptions. You will learn about it later if you decide to learn Forest Natvi. Yeah, as said, currently this video is part of the Reef Natvi course, so if you are in a playlist right now, then you are in a Reef Natvi playlist. If you are interested in learning Forest Natvi instead, then you can find a link to the course in the video description, and of course also in the end card I will link the playlist. Now you have an overview about Reef Natvi versus Forest Natvi. Hopefully you were able to make a decision which of the two you want to learn. If you want to learn Reef Natvi, then there is one more thing that we have to talk about, namely how to write it down. So I showed you a lot of different sound differences between the two dialects. But how do we write it down? Because for years we only had Forest Natvi. So do we write all the changes that happened or not? This is what Kaye Paul says about it. For Reef Natvi spelling, include ö when appropriate. Change p, t, and k to b, d, g optionally. Do so if you want to emphasize the difference between the dialects. But there is no need to change sir to sh and tsir to ch. Simply retain the original spellings and pronounce the words in the appropriate way for each dialect. So he says we don't have to reflect all the changes in speaking in how we write Reef Natvi. That kind of makes sense. So he takes Forest Natvi as the baseline on how to write and then only changes things that are not regular. So for example, the sir to sh change between the dialects is regular. You always do it. So even if you still write it like in Forest Natvi, you can just always say sh instead of sir. This is what Paul Frommer said, how he would do it, how he suggests we do it. But actually what I notice in the community is that many Reef Natvi learners don't follow this guideline. They instead write really all the changes that happen out, so they write it like you would say it in Reef Natvi. And this is also how I will do it in this course. So for educational purposes, this course will ignore these guidelines and always write all the differences. This is, as I said, how many in the community already do it. I know some also follow the guidelines, and that is fine. That is how Kaye Paul said it should be done. But yeah, also as a small warning, you will see different ways of write Reef Natvi, because some people write out all the changes, some people follow these guidelines. Unfortunately, I think so far there is no one thing that everyone in the community does. Now that we know how we will write down things here in the course, let's talk about how the course is structured. Why a course structure? Because, as I said, we now have a big course with listening, vocab, grammar, workbook chapters, and so on. So I want to give you an overview how each chapter is structured. Why do we need so many different things actually? I used to have, as I said, only grammar videos. But then there is the problem that many learners will just do grammar video, then the next grammar video, then the next grammar video, and then suddenly they did 5 grammar videos in 5 days, or even worse, 5 grammar videos in 1 day. This is not how language learning usually works. Just as an example, I'm following a Chinese course in university. It's an intensive Chinese course. I have 10 hours of lesson each week. Out of these 10 hours, only 2 are about grammar. All the other lessons are about learning to listen, learning words, learning how to use words, learning some phrases, practicing writing, practicing grammar, practice. Learning new grammar actually should be only a small part of what you do for learning a language. You have to practice a lot. This should be the main part. Because of this, I decided to fill up the course with so many random listening practice videos, because I want to give you something to do between each grammar video. It might seem a lot, but it is on purpose that you only have a bit of grammar and a lot of random other nonsense in between. So, each chapter of this course starts with a grammar video where you will learn some new grammar structure. The grammar videos are usually very in-depth, so they focus on one topic and they really tell you everything about it, or almost everything. This is also so that you later can come back and re-listen to it and get an overview over the complete topic. Next, we have 3 listening practice videos. All of them have different focuses. The first is the easiest one, and it's the vocab video. So in this video, I will introduce always 20 new words. You're supposed to actually learn these words because the videos are building up onto each other. So listening 2.1 will also include the words from listening 1.1. And yeah, I will introduce some new words. Then I will read you a bunch of sentences that use the grammar you learned so far. So these are really meant to be easy, or at least the easiest out of the listening videos, because they only use the words you already learned in the vocab videos and the grammar you learned so far in the grammar videos. The next one is medium difficulty. This one, again, uses only the grammar you learned so far, but it will also use other vocab. You're meant to look up words while following these videos. This is because when you are talking to someone in Navi, then of course that person will not only use exactly the 20 words you already learned and the 1 grammar structure you already learned. People will use whatever is needed to express what they want to say. So looking up words on the fly while hearing them actually is a really important skill. That is why I want to include this here. So this video will use more different words and you will have to look them up. And then there is the hard listening video, which usually has some more complex sentences, some texts or something like that. And here I go wild. I still use specifically things that you have learned in the videos before, but I will also use more complex sentences. I will put entire sentences in consisting only of words and grammar you don't know yet, so that you cannot understand. And that is on purpose, because when you speak to someone in a new language, you will not understand everything. It is important to get the gist of it. It's important to focus on the things that you already learned and already know. So these videos are really there so you can try to understand things from context, to get the gist of things, to understand the overall meaning, and yeah, learning to be fine to not understand everything. And then there's also a workbook. So each chapter of the course also has a chapter in the workbook. I say written exercises here, but actually they're not all writing exercises. In the workbook you find all kinds of exercises: vocab, grammar, more listening, some speaking tasks, some reading tasks. So it's really a wide variety of exercises there. The workbook, of course, is not a video, but in every video you find in the description a link to the workbook. The workbook, by the way, also usually starts each chapter with an overview of what you learned. There you find some summaries of the videos, which can also be useful to keep track of the things you learned. Once you are done with the exercises, then it starts over again with chapter 2. Then you have a new grammar video. Of course, again, free listening videos and another chapter in the workbook, and so on. And that was it. Lucy Baum Ngarusra? Neye Baum. Do you have questions? Just ask. You can always ask in the comments, of course. You can reach me on Discord as Tekre. You can write me email. And if you want to support me, you can do that on Patreon. Next up is the How to Learn Natvi video. I know it should be, following the chapter structure, it should be a grammar video. But the first chapter is a bit different because it's more meant to set you up for learning Natvi. So instead of a grammar video, in that chapter you get How to Learn Natvi, which gives you a lot of tips for learning Natvi or also other languages, and also shows you different places that might be useful. And as I promised, if you're here to learn Forest Natvi instead of Reef Natvi, you can find the course there. Hi, Jadova Mafrapo.